June 2020. The bone-dry air of the Hatch Valley Desert in New Mexico blanketed the abandoned water treatment plant about 10 miles from the town of Hatch. The beam from Investigator Clara Mendez's flashlight cut through the dust, landing on a collapsed patch of ground where the sand appeared to have been disturbed long ago. Central. I need backup at Hatch Waterworks and send the forensics unit to the scene. Her voice crackled over the radio, dry and restrained. What began as a routine review of cold case files had turned into a horrifying discovery, one that would answer the question haunting Hatch for over a decade. Beneath that layer of desert soil, the forensics team uncovered human bones, a scrap of purple fabric, and a silver necklace engraved with the initials. None, the monogram of Maya Delgado, the girl who vanished from this town in the summer of 2009. For 11 years, Maya's disappearance was Hatch's silent wound. A story without an ending, a mystery everyone had learned to avoid mentioning. June 2009. Hatch was a small town along the Rio Grande, where life revolved around chili farms and parched harvest seasons. That night, after the high school graduation ceremony, 17-year-old Maya Delgado left the party with her boyfriend, 21-year-old Aaron Blake. A few classmates saw them arguing under the yellow lights of the parking lot. The silver pickup truck roared to life, kicking up dust as it sped away, and that was the last time Maya was seen. The next morning, her mother, Elena Delgado, found Maya's room empty, the bed neatly made, the phone turned off. When police were called, a town-wide search began. From Hatch to the riverbank, dozens of volunteers scoured every bush. The only thing they found, a small shoe stained with dried blood. No body, no trace, no explanation. Suspicion quickly turned to Aaron Blake, the last person with Maya. He said they argued. Then she got out and walked home alone. His truck was examined, revealing a long hair stuck with sand and a dark fabric scrap. But the tests at the time yielded insufficient data for comparison. No evidence, no charges. 3 months later, the file was shelved as cold case #09247. 10 years passed. Ortiz, the sheriff at the time, retired. The Delgado family left Hatch. Aaron moved to Albuquerque, and Maya's name became just a faded line on the old high school's memorial plaque. Then in 2020, when New Mexico launched the cold case DNA reanalysis program, Investigator Clara Mendez reopened an old evidence box by chance. Inside were the hair sample, fabric scrap, shoes, and an undeveloped Polaroid film packet. Those seemingly meaningless items became the key to unlocking a truth buried for over a decade. The Albuquerque Forensics Lab recovered the photo. In it, Maya sat in the passenger seat of a vehicle, head slightly tilted, hair disheveled, the light reflecting off the window, revealing the silhouette of a man behind the wheel. The timestamp matched the night Maya vanished. The discovery at Hatch Waterworks was not just the end of a missing person case. It was the first domino in a chain of events that would expose secrets this small community had buried for over 10 years. Because when the arrest warrant was issued in 2020, the suspect was not some nameless drifter, but someone Hatch had trusted, spoken to, called by a familiar name. The Maya Delgado case is not just the story of a forgotten girl. It is proof of the power of forensic science, the persistence of investigators who refuse to accept defeat, and of justice that, though delayed, can still make time bow its head. It is also the story of a community torn apart by suspicion and silence. When Maya vanished, rumors spread through Hatch like wildfire. Neighbors looked at each other differently. Families and friends fractured over accusations. And only when the truth was revealed did people realize the answer had always been very close. That man had been interviewed in the initial investigation, had looked into Maya's mother's eyes at memorial services, had lived among them for 11 years, carrying a secret no one could have imagined. Where are you watching from today? Leave a comment below. I always want to know how far stories like this travel and how many people they connect. Tonight, we'll retrace the summer of 2009, follow a trail spanning over a decade, and reveal the twist that stunned all of New Mexico. This is a story of loss, persistence, deception, and justice delayed, but never denied. June 2009, the town of Hatch, New Mexico, lay quiet amid the windy red dust valley of the desert. The narrow main streets, with sparse diners, shops, and gas stations, all lit up for the high school graduation, the biggest event of the year for the community. Amid the music blaring from outdoor speakers and the smell of barbecue smoke filling the schoolyard, students who had just finished their teenage years gathered in groups, laughing, taking photos, and exchanging goodbyes. In that crowd, 17-year-old Maya Delgado stood out with her long black hair and deep, thoughtful eyes. She was quiet, but known to all. Loved by friends for her gentle nature, she always sketched portraits for everyone in her little notebook. That night, Maya attended the ceremony with her group of friends, then met her boyfriend, Aaron Blake, 21, from the nearby town of Las Cruces. They talked for a long time in a corner of the parking lot behind the school. Some passing students said it looked like they were arguing. Maya had her arms crossed, eyes averted, while Aaron spoke quickly, voice tense. Around nearly 11 o'clock at night, they left together in Aaron's silver pickup truck, heading toward Highway 185. No one knew where they went after that. When the music stopped, the school lights dimmed, and the last people cleaned up trash on the field, no one realized Maya hadn't returned. That night, the desert wind was harsh and dry, temperatures dropping to just over 50 degrees, moonlight spilling over the low house. On the west side of town, in a small yellow-painted house, Elena Delgado, Maya's mother, still hadn't slept. The clock struck 12, then 1 in the morning. Maya's phone remained off. Elena stepped out onto the porch, staring at the empty road, calling a few more times, each met only with ringing and then voicemail. The next morning, as the sun rose over the Oregon mountains, Maya's room was exactly as she'd left it. Bed smooth, her sketchbook open on the desk, a glass still half full of water. The mother searched the house, then called her daughter's 2 close friends. No one knew where Maya was. One said they saw her leave the party with Aaron Blake. Another heard they had argued in the parking lot. Anxiety turned to panic as time passed without news. Elena drove to her boyfriend's house, but the door was locked, no truck in the yard. Near mid-morning, she went to the Hatch police station to report it, bringing a graduation portrait of Maya, smiling under the black cap. In the statement, she emphasized that her daughter had never stayed out overnight, let alone run away. The duty officer recorded the information, then forwarded the report to superiors for urgent handling. The first internal bulletin of the day read clearly, female juvenile, 17 years old, missing under unclear circumstances, possibly involving an acquaintance. From that morning, Maya Delgado's name was officially added to the missing persons list for Doña Ana County, the start of a case that would unsettle the entire small town. That same morning, the report was transferred from the Hatch police station to Sheriff Raymond Ortiz's office. He received the file as he entered his workspace, skimmed the first lines, then looked up, eyes thoughtful. In a town of just over 2,000 people, a high school girl vanishing after graduation night was unprecedented. Ortiz immediately ordered an official investigation file, coded missing person #09247, and assigned 2 investigators. He personally went to the Delgado home to meet the mother. The small house on the town's edge was flooded with sunlight, door wide open, the air still carrying the scent of fresh coffee. Elena greeted him with a haggard face, eyes red from a sleepless night. Ortiz noted her account of the previous evening, how Maya left for the graduation party with friends and didn't return. He examined the girl's bedroom, bed smooth, clothes neatly hung in the closet, sketchbook open on the desk, no sign she'd prepared to leave. Ortiz concluded this wasn't a typical runaway case. He requested collection of Maya's toothbrush, jacket, and some personal items for identification and testing if needed. Meanwhile, 2 other officers went to the high school to interview those at the party. Many witnesses confirmed seeing Maya leave with her boyfriend, Aaron Blake, around nearly 11 p.m. in the silver pickup. Some said they seemed to be arguing, Aaron's voice louder than usual. This information led Ortiz to note Aaron's name, immediately under last person in contact. He called the technical department to check Maya's phone signal. Results showed the last call originated near the school area at 22:57. Then the device went completely offline. This suggested the phone was turned off or damaged within minutes of her leaving the party. By early afternoon, Ortiz went to Aaron's house on the outskirts of Hatch. The 21-year-old opened the door looking tired, insisting he was innocent. According to his statement, he drove Maya to the truck. They argued about college plans. She demanded to get out and walk home alone. Ortiz noticed faint scratches on his hands, red dust on the truck floor. He requested permission for a thorough check, noting a long hair stuck to the door handle, then took it to evidence storage. Everything was done by the book, no rushing, no assumptions. As he left, Ortiz simply said Aaron should stay in town until the search concluded. That night, he returned to headquarters, desk lamp reflecting off maps spread across the table. Every area around Hatch Valley was circled by him, marked for searching at dawn: the road to the river, abandoned farms, and open land where Aaron's truck was often seen. He knew if Maya had truly met foul play, every passing hour made hope of finding her alive slimmer. The next morning, as the first sunlight spilled over the eastern hills of Hatch Valley, search teams deployed. Local police, Doña Ana County rescue teams, and dozens of volunteers fanned out in the directions marked on the map Ortiz had prepared all night. The search area stretched along the Rio Grande, including chili fields and open land to the west, where locals grazed livestock. Ortiz directed from the command vehicle parked at the town entrance, radio constantly on, maps spread over the hood. The morning air was dry and heavy with dust, police dogs barking in bursts amid the desert wind. Around 9 o'clock, a patrol team found a purple fabric scrap caught in thorny brush near the riverbank, about 3 miles from downtown. They radioed in, and Ortiz with Investigator Forrester arrived quickly. The fabric was placed in a nylon bag, carefully sealed. Upon close inspection, Ortiz recognized it as cotton blend, matching the shirt Maya wore in her graduation photo. The color and material matched Elena Delgado's description in the statement. The surrounding area was thoroughly searched, but showed no signs of struggle or blood. Under the fine sand by the river, only a few small shoe prints headed south, then vanished on the cracked dry surface. A technician measured and recorded the sole pattern, concluding it could be women's athletic shoes. The rest of the morning passed in silence, everyone continuing to sweep areas, marking with small wooden stakes. By noon, temperatures rose above 86 degrees, the air stifling and choking with dust. Participants took turns resting under rare tree shade, drinking water, then spreading out again. Ortiz stood staring at the cracked earth, mentally replaying the route from the high school to here, less than 5 miles, a 10-minute drive. He knew if Maya had walked, she couldn't have reached here in the dark without being seen. Early afternoon, the second search group moved to the wide field near Highway 185. One volunteer spotted faint tire tracks in the dry sand, looking wind-erased. Police measured and photographed, but couldn't determine when they were made. No further pedestrian traces or personal items. By late afternoon, the search paused to avoid extreme heat. Ortiz called a quick meeting at headquarters. The first report noted, purple fabric scrap matching victim's clothing description found, small shoe prints sporadic, no other evidence. Victim likely traveled by vehicle, direction undetermined. He ordered a list of vehicles passing the area on the night of June 13th, and asked Riverside residents to report any unusual sounds. News of the search spread quickly on local radio. Station KXNM aired a special bulletin at 6 p.m. Hatch police conducting search for missing 17-year-old girl. Residents urged to report any suspicious signs along the Rio Grande. Diners and shops posted flyers with the hotline number. That evening, a small group of volunteers stayed in the search area, continuing with flashlights. Sand blew in faces, beams cutting through dust swirls. Ortiz walked the riverbank, staring at the dark water, rippling gently. All was silent except the radio static in the darkness. When the clock neared 10, he ordered withdrawal, scheduling resumption at dawn. In the day's final report, his handwritten line was thick and firm. Wide area search yielded no results. Continue sweeping Hatch Valley. Prioritize south. Outside, the New Mexico night sky glowed copper red, desert wind rattling the sign in front of the police station. Maya Delgado's disappearance, after 2 days of searching, left no clear trace, only the small purple scrap as the sole clue in the vast emptiness of the dusty, windy valley. The next morning, as search teams continued expanding the area along the Rio Grande, Sheriff Ortiz decided to shift focus to the last person known to have seen Maya, Aaron Blake. He was summoned to headquarters at 9 a.m. for a formal interview. Ortiz, along with Investigator Forrester, handled the first interrogation session. Aaron, 21, wearing a gray shirt, appeared calm but avoided direct eye contact. He stated that on graduation night, after leaving the party with Maya, they drove around for a while, then stopped at an empty lot near the old warehouse area. They argued about Maya's plans to attend college in Albuquerque. He thought she shouldn't go far, while she insisted on leaving Hatch. After a few tense minutes, Maya opened the door, got out, and said she would walk home. Aaron said he waited about 5 minutes, didn't see her return, and left. Before leaving headquarters, he insisted he hadn't seen Maya since then and received no calls or messages from her. Ortiz listened without interrupting, only taking detailed notes. At the end of the session, he requested to inspect Aaron's pickup truck as part of routine procedure. Aaron agreed, but his face showed slight hesitation. In the parking lot behind the station, the silver pickup was opened for examination. The exterior had no notable scratches, but the interior floor was covered in a layer of red dust, typical of the Hatch Valley desert. Ortiz used a flashlight to scan, noticing sand stuck in door crevices and seat surfaces. On the passenger door handle, a long black hair was lightly caught, removed with tweezers by a technician, and placed in an evidence bag. The entire vehicle was temporarily sealed for detailed testing. Forrester reported a faint cleaning agent smell lingering in the cabin, possibly recently cleaned. Ortiz made no comment, only ordering photos of the entire vehicle interior and a report. When asked about cleaning the truck, Aaron said he usually washed it on weekends, unrelated to the case. The response caught Ortiz's attention. It was Monday, only 2 days after graduation. In the internal report, he wrote, "Suspect's vehicle shows signs of recent cleaning, floor dust layer unevenly thick." Still, all assumptions had to be evidence-based. The samples, hair, sand, and floor mat fibers, were sent to the Santa Fe Forensics Lab for analysis. Ortiz also requested fingerprint checks and fabric samples from the passenger seat. That afternoon, he called Aaron back to sign the vehicle impound form. Throughout the process, Aaron was cooperative but reserved, giving short answers. When Ortiz asked again about the time between leaving the party and going home, Aaron said, "About half an hour," but traffic camera data on Highway 185 showed his truck near town at 2340, at least 45 minutes later than stated. When informed, Aaron explained he might have stopped midway to calm down, but didn't remember the exact spot. This response was noted in the file as inconsistent. That evening, Ortiz sat in his office reviewing the full statement. Aaron's account seemed logical timeline-wise but raised doubts. The unusually early truck cleaning, the unexplained gap after leaving the party, and Maya saying she'd walk home. Illogical on a dark night in the desert, over 4 miles from downtown. He added a final note, recommend surveillance of subject pending analysis results, insufficient grounds for search warrant or arrest. Outside, Hatch was quiet, only the lone light from the police station casting onto the dusty red road. 3 days after Maya Delgado's disappearance, the search yielded no results, and Aaron Blake's name was now the sole focus in file #09247. The last person seen with the young girl before she vanished without a trace. 4 days after the samples were sent, the Santa Fe Forensics Lab returned a preliminary report. The thin document, just a few pages, was for Sheriff Ortiz the only hope to advance the investigation. He opened the envelope at his desk, still dusted with fine Hatch Valley desert sand. The results stated clearly: hair sample from suspect's vehicle door handle contaminated, insufficient DNA quantity for identification comparison. The short line left Ortiz silent. He read it twice, then flipped to the conclusion: cannot rule out belonging to victim, but no confirmatory value. The passenger seat fabric samples yielded similar results. The lab identified common synthetic fibers, no traces of blood or epithelial cells. The purple fabric scrapped from the Rio Grande riverbank, despite being the most promising lead, provided no biological information. The report noted, cotton polyester blend material degraded by sun, wind, and moisture. No blood detected, no skin cells or sweat extractable for DNA. Everything returned to zero. Ortiz carefully clipped the results into file hash 09247, then leaned back in his chair, a wave of disappointment washing over him. He had hoped to at least prove Maya's presence in Aaron's truck, even through a minor trace. But with the lab's vague conclusions, everything remained at suspicion. The report's final section had a note from the Santa Fe technical team lead: recommend retaining samples, consider touch DNA analysis when feasible. In 2009, the concept was still new, not widely applied. Ortiz marked the line in red pen, then closed the file. In the next morning's meeting, he presented the results to the investigation team. No one seemed surprised, but the room felt heavy. Investigator Forrester quietly said the past week's efforts had yielded almost nothing. River and plateau searches ended in vain. Search dogs found no new traces. Satellite images, supported by the county office, showed no unusual movement in the suspect area. Ortiz concluded, we lack legal grounds for a search warrant or suspect detention. Continue remote surveillance and update Aaron Blake's movement schedule. Since the interrogation, Aaron had barely left town, still going to the part-time mechanic shop where he worked. Assigned officers took turns observing, noting his daily routine. The first surveillance report stated Aaron usually returned home on time, had little contact with others, and sometimes drove south of the river on weekends, the same direction as the purple fabric find. Ortiz read every line carefully, but knew it wasn't enough to proceed further. While waiting, he continued reviewing the entire file. Crime scene photos, friend statements, maps pinned densely with red tacks. The timeline was redrawn on the office whiteboard. 22:45, Maya leaves party. 22:57, last phone signal. 23:40, Aaron's truck on camera. The nearly 1 hour gap between markers remained unexplained. Ortiz underlined that timeline, but he knew without physical evidence, all guesses were just speculation. That afternoon, Elena Delgado came to the station, asking for updates. Ortiz sat across from her in the small room, speaking slowly that the forensic results weren't conclusive. The mother's face hardened, hands clutching her daughter's photo. She asked if police believed Maya was still alive. Ortiz paused a few seconds, then said only, "We have no reason to conclude otherwise." After she left, he stood long by the window, staring at the empty road. In previous missing persons cases, usually within 3 days, there would be a call, a message, or at least a bank card transaction. But with Maya, everything was completely silent. That evening, Ortiz noted the daily report: no direct evidence confirming victim's presence in suspect's vehicle. Insufficient legal grounds for arrest warrant. Continue behavioral surveillance. Await additional results. He pinned the note to the board, then turned off the office light, leaving only dim glow in the hallway. In Hatch, the story of the missing girl still spread everywhere. People retold every heard detail, different each day, but no one had real information. The flyers with Maya's image began fading in the sun, edges curling in the wind. Over the next 2 weeks, the investigation nearly stalled. Ortiz called the lab frequently, hoping for errors or new results, but always got the same answer: no additional data, samples stored. He directed officers to maintain errand surveillance, logging meetings and vehicles used. All normal, no suspicious actions. One evening, reviewing scene photos, Ortiz noticed Maya's graduation picture shoes had white star patterns, common, but he still noted in the margin, "If similar item found, compare immediately." As June passed, the case gradually lost priority. Sheriff Ortiz submitted the initial phase summary to the county office. Forensic results insufficient for prosecution. Recommend keeping file open, continue monitoring related subject. Cannot rule out victim voluntarily leaving area. The report ended with a thin, neat signature. That night, he stayed alone in the office, staring at the row of files on the shelf. Neon light reflected off the new brown cover, labeled #09247, the first missing persons case in years. Hatch couldn't answer, now temporarily forced to pause in silence. 3 weeks after the unfavorable forensic results, Sheriff Ortiz still couldn't close the disappearance case. Every morning, he received the same report. No new leads, no new witnesses. Local media pressure increased, but what concerned him more was Elena Delgado's empty gaze each time she appeared at the station. While others gradually saw it as a voluntary departure, Ortiz still believed it wasn't over. He decided on a second expanded search beyond Hatch Valley. Based on wind direction, terrain, and the Rio Grande's flow, he circled the Elephant Butte Dam area, nearly 40 miles north of Hatch, with a vast reservoir and many remote, sparsely visited lands. The search launched in early July, under nearly 104-degree heat. Over 30 participants, including police, rescue personnel, and volunteers. Specialized vehicles, drones, and search dogs were deployed. Ortiz set up temporary command at a campground parking lot, coordinating via radio. In the first 2 days, teams swept the entire West Lake shore, rocky limestone areas, and knee-high dry grass. Nothing but a few tourist-discarded items. On the third day, as the sun dipped low, a 3-person team spotted a strange object at the water's edge, a small gray-white athletic shoe, caked in dark dried mud. When brought to the field headquarters, Ortiz recognized it similar to the one in Maya's graduation photo. Size, style, and logo all matched. The outer surface had dark brown streaks, the sole edge still clinging to red sand like Hatch Valley soil. The shoe was placed in a sealed bag, urgently sent to the Las Cruces Forensics Lab for preliminary analysis. While awaiting results, the investigation team swept the surrounding area for the mate or any other items. They waded along the shore, using probes and flashlights, but found only dry branches and broken glass. A sonar unit was called to scan the lake bottom, but results showed no notable anomalies. 3 days later, the lab sent a temporary report: dried blood on the fabric near the toe, oxidized. Quick test showed blood type O, matching Maya Delgado's medical record. However, the sample was too small for DNA extraction. Ortiz read the report, set it down, then stared at the shoe photo in the envelope. It was the first clear, valuable evidence after nearly a month, but still insufficient to prove anything. He ordered continued expansion of the search radius, 5 miles around the discovery site, while requesting technical support from Albuquerque's professional dive team. In the following week, the Elephant Butte Dam area was nearly thoroughly searched. Under blazing sun, groups moved slowly along slopes, eyes fixed on the ground. They dug soft soil spots, used metal detectors around lakeside gravel, some locations marked with wooden stakes and red paint, but checks revealed only cans or old trash. High heat and strong winds extended work into the evening. Ortiz often stayed at command until late, noting each swept coordinate, marking with red pen on the topographic map. Each resultless day, he crossed off an area and saw the suspect range widening. News of the shoe being found spread quickly, igniting a mix of hope and anxiety in the local community. Newspapers published distant photos of the scene, and local TV channels called it the most important clue in Maya Delgado's disappearance. Residents flocked to the area near the dam, bringing water and food to support the rescue teams. Some volunteers set up tents to stay overnight, ready to continue searching. But by the end of the second week, all that had been recovered were a scrap of fabric, a few shoe prints mixed in the sand, and a single shoe. No body, no other personal items. On July 19th, after 11 straight days of searching, Ortiz held a meeting at the field command post. He thanked everyone for their support, then announced a temporary suspension of operations until new data emerged. To the press, he gave a brief statement. "We have thoroughly searched the entire suspicious area, but no additional evidence has been found proving Maya Delgado was present here. All items recovered are undergoing further examination." His voice was hoarse from days in the sun. Deep down, Ortiz knew pausing was necessary. The team was exhausted, and the local budget couldn't sustain an indefinite campaign. That evening, he returned to the Hatch station with the investigators. On the table, file #09247 had grown a few inches thicker, filled with dozens of photos, reports, and maps. The single shoe, the only evidence that could touch Maya, was now in the evidence locker, labeled pending confirmation. Ortiz stared at it for a long time, then wrote in the investigation log, "High likelihood item belongs to victim. Blood type matches, but DNA source undetermined. Body not found. Recommend suspending search, awaiting new directives." The next day, news of the suspension spread throughout Hatch Valley. The flyers on utility poles began to fade, Maya's photo blurring under the sun. Elena Delgado came to the station once more, sitting silently for hours in the hallway. As she left, she only whispered that she would keep searching for her daughter herself, even if the police no longer had the manpower. Ortiz watched her figure disappear through the door, the familiar sense of helplessness washing over him. He knew that, at least for now, the official investigation had reached its limit. No body, no witnesses, no new evidence. Hatch Valley returned to its normal rhythm, leaving in file #09247 a temporary conclusion. Expanded search at Elephant Butte Dam yielded no results. Sole physical evidence is one female athletic shoe, blood type O matching victim. Case temporarily unable to progress further. After the search at Elephant Butte Dam officially ended, the mood at the Hatch police station grew noticeably heavier. The case seemed to have hit a dead end, but Chief Raymond Ortiz refused to close the file. In his report to the county office, he wrote clearly, "Insufficient evidence to confirm a crime, but grounds to suspect concealment." From that assessment, he shifted the investigation, focusing entirely on the only person directly linked, Aaron Blake. A covert surveillance plan was launched to track the suspect's movements and daily habits. Ortiz assigned Investigator Forrester to coordinate with two other officers, rotating shifts to tail Aaron for weeks. According to the first surveillance report, Aaron lived quietly in a small house on the edge of town, still working at the old mechanic shop. He usually left for work early in the morning, got off at 5, then drove home, rarely interacting with anyone. Occasionally, on weekends, he would leave town for a few hours and return, often heading south, matching the route toward Texas. Forrester installed a small camera in the surveillance vehicle, recording footage each time Aaron left home. Everything appeared normal. No signs of fleeing, no contact with strangers, no obvious attempts to erase traces. In early August, Ortiz received a report that Aaron had taken his silver pickup truck, the last vehicle seen with Maya, to a familiar garage for repairs. The mechanic said he wanted the entire interior cleaned and a new paint job. Ortiz immediately ordered tighter surveillance, but had no legal grounds to stop the repairs. Internally, he admitted his fear that the truck could be destroyed, meaning the loss of the only major physical evidence. 3 days later, as predicted, Aaron posted an ad to sell the truck. An undercover officer was sent as a potential buyer, but before contact could be made, the vehicle was sold to a scrapyard in El Paso, Texas, at an unusually low price. Ortiz contacted the El Paso police immediately, requesting the truck be held for inspection. However, when the investigation team arrived, the scrapyard staff reported that the vehicle had been dismantled the same day. The body was cut up, the engine separated, and the interior tossed into a storage area, awaiting crushing. Ortiz stood in the massive scrapyard, the stench of metal and oil thick in the air, staring at silver fragments mixed in the pile of junk, speechless. He ordered technicians to collect any identifiable parts, especially the front seats and dashboard. Some components were gathered, but most were deformed. When a technician asked if he wanted to continue extracting samples, Ortiz just nodded. They packaged a few seat leather scraps, door plastic pieces, and remaining floor mat fragments for the evidence room. In his notes that night, Ortiz wrote briefly, "Vehicle related to case destroyed at El Paso scrapyard, unable to reconstruct vehicle structure. Portions of interior recovered, but heavily damaged, difficult to extract biological samples." He knew the only chance to confirm Maya's presence in the truck, even through a blood stain or a hair, had been nearly erased. In the following days, the surveillance team continued tracking Aaron. Forrester noted he never left Hatch, still went to work regularly, showing no signs of worry or plans to leave. This made Ortiz even more suspicious. Either he was truly innocent, or too confident that all traces were gone. In an internal meeting, he told the investigators, "We just lost our most critical evidence. The truck was the only remaining mobile crime scene. Now, to move forward, we're left relying on statements." But Aaron remained silent. After the initial interrogation, he refused to answer any more questions, citing exhaustion. The lawyer hired by his family advised him not to cooperate until a new subpoena. Ortiz felt stuck. He sent a report to his superiors, requesting expanded investigation authority into Texas to check any stored parts. However, due to lack of specific criminal grounds, the request was denied. The Santa Fe Forensics Lab also reported that the interior scraps from the scrapyard were too contaminated for DNA extraction, all tainted with oil, rust, and cleaning chemicals. The report ended with a cold line. Unable to analyze, in the weeks that followed, everything fell into a waiting state. Ortiz kept the surveillance team active, but hope was fading. Outside, Hatch residents returned to normal life, only occasionally mentioning Maya as an unresolved sad story. One night, alone in his office, Ortiz opened the evidence locker and looked at the nylon bag holding the worn seat leather scraps, the only remnants of the truck that had once been the case's center. He understood that since the truck was shredded in El Paso, the investigation had lost its heart. In the end-of-month report, he wrote a closing line in slow, firm handwriting, "Subject remains under surveillance. Vehicle destroyed before authorities could access, resulting in severe evidence loss. No remaining physical evidence for analysis." The paper was clipped into file #09247, adding a bit more thickness but weighing heavier than ever. After the truck's loss erased the most critical evidence, Chief Ortiz still hadn't given up. He knew one small mistake could collapse the entire file, but his professional instinct told him Aaron Blake was hiding something. The truck's quick sale, timed perfectly with the end of the Elephant Butte search, was a detail he couldn't ignore. Ortiz filed a request with the Doña Ana County Court for a search warrant of the suspect's home, citing suspicion of destroying evidence related to Maya Delgado's disappearance. 2 days later, the judge approved the warrant, limiting the search to the residence and attached garage. On Thursday morning, a 4-person investigation team arrived at Aaron's small brick house on the edge of Hatch Valley. The house was quiet, curtains drawn, only the cicadas buzzing outside. Aaron, notified in advance, appeared reluctant but didn't resist. Ortiz read the full warrant, then had him sign to confirm notification. The search began in the living room. Everything was tidy, nothing unusual. Clean floors, neatly arranged furniture, a white tablecloth on the dining table. They moved to the bedroom, bed sheets flat, no signs of struggle or blood, no personal items of Maya's. Investigator Forrester checked the closet, drawers, cabinets. Everything was empty to the point of seeming deliberately organized. In the kitchen, Ortiz noticed fresh paint at the base of the walls, brighter than the rest. He had a technician check with UV light, but saw no reaction. A faint cleaning chemical smell lingered, but not enough to identify the type. After nearly an hour, they moved to the back area, the garage. The metal door opened, heat rushing in. The cluttered garage held toolboxes, a few oil cans, and a wooden shelf with old items. On the shelf, amid cardboard boxes and wires, Ortiz spotted a silver Polaroid camera, covered in a thin layer of dust. Next to it was an unopened film pack, its seal yellowed with age. Wearing gloves, he carefully lifted the camera, checking it quickly. The device still worked, the film compartment empty, only a few small scratches on the body. Forrester logged it as item 14, Polaroid SX70 camera, condition intact. The film pack was numbered next. Ortiz asked Aaron about its origin. He said it was his uncle's old camera, left behind long ago, and he'd never used it. With no evidence to contradict, the team recorded the statement. Beyond those two items, the garage held nothing noteworthy. When the search concluded, the entire house was photographed in its current state, and dust and fiber samples were collected from key areas. Preliminary results: no blood traces, no signs of struggle, no visible DNA. Ortiz seized the camera and film pack per procedure, sealed and signed. Everything was transferred to the Hatch headquarters that afternoon, stored in a numbered section of the evidence locker for file hash 09247. As the team left the scene, Aaron sat on the steps, silently watching. No one in the group said a word. On the drive back to the station, Ortiz held the camera box on the passenger seat. Late afternoon light glinted off the old lens, making him wonder. Polaroid, instant print cameras, popular in the 90s, were rare now. Why would a man in his 20s, living alone, keep such an outdated item in his garage? The thought flickered, then was suppressed by fatigue and caution. He knew he couldn't let intuition lead without concrete evidence. Back at headquarters, Ortiz and Forrester completed the report. The notable findings section simply read, Polaroid SX70 camera and unexposed film pack, seized as supplemental evidence, not yet technically examined, due to lack of legal basis linking to case. The items were placed in slot 12 of the storage locker, double-sealed. Ortiz signed the handover log and closed it. That night, he sat in his office, rereading the entire case report from the start. The purple fabric scrap, the shoe at Elephant Butte, the hair with insufficient DNA, now the camera and film. Each detail was a loose piece, unable to form a picture. He wondered if he was chasing something that didn't exist. But every time he looked at Maya's smiling graduation photo pinned to the board, he felt driven to continue. The house search yielded nothing valuable, but Ortiz didn't cross Aaron Blake's name off the suspect list. The next morning, in his report to the county office, he wrote a brief conclusion: search of suspect's home per court warrant, found no criminal evidence, no blood traces or signs of struggle, 2 seized items, Polaroid camera and unexposed film, sealed in storage, not yet examined, due to lack of specific legal basis. Recommend maintaining open file. The report was clipped into file hash 09247. Inserted among dozens of yellowed documents, a small part of the long, quiet effort in a case no one was sure would ever have answers. 3 months after the search of Aaron Blake's home, the atmosphere at the Hatch Police Department was as heavy as the autumn sun in the New Mexico desert. Every investigative avenue was blocked. No new evidence, no witnesses, no traces leading to Maya Delgado. The final forensics report from the Santa Fe lab returned to headquarters with just a few cold lines. No blood detected, no DNA recovered, no viable biological material. The Polaroid camera and unexposed film pack remained in the evidence locker, carefully sealed, untouched. Each week, Ortiz opened file hash 09247 to review. But the more he read, the more he realized he was circling the same old data. In early September, the investigation room maintained only formal activity, periodic checks, empty report updates. Forrester, who had closely followed the case, was reassigned to assist another case in Deming. The volunteers who had searched Elephant Butte gradually withdrew. The Hatch community, once buzzing, grew accustomed to the silence around Maya Delgado's name. The missing person flyers on utility poles faded, some fell off, others covered by job ads. Ortiz persisted for a few more weeks. He had Maya's phone data rechecked, but the last record still stopped at 10:52 p.m. that night, when she left coverage near Hatch Valley. Social media accounts revealed nothing more. In the summary report, the line "no activity after June 13, 2009, repeated like a conclusion. Aaron Blake remained the only suspect in the file, but without charging evidence, he was just a name quietly on the watch list. In early October, Ortiz attended a meeting with the county prosecutor's office. The nearly 2-hour meeting focused on whether to continue funding this missing person case. The chief prosecutor stated, "No body, no crime scene, no witnesses. Without a breakthrough, this will just be an open file indefinitely." Ortiz stayed silent throughout, until asked for his opinion, when he replied briefly, "We've done all we can." On October 18th, after much consideration, Ortiz signed the report closing Phase 1 of the investigation. The nearly 100-page document included all statements, forensics results, search maps, scene photos, and evidence seizure reports. The final page bore a bold line, Case #09247, Maya Delgado, transferred to cold case status. As he signed, Ortiz paused for a few seconds, staring at the space between insufficient and crime. It was the fragile line between belief and failure. That afternoon, he alone carried the file to the county's storage room. The room was in the basement, concrete walls, cool air, dim yellow lights. Metal cabinets lined up, labeled by year. Ortiz found the 2009 Unresolved Cases section, pulled the third drawer, and placed the thick, heavy file inside, next to cases faded with time. When he pushed the drawer shut, the metal clanged dryly, then silence. He stood there a long time, hearing only the ventilation fan and his own echo. Back in his office, Ortiz looked through the narrow window onto Hatch's main street. The afternoon was golden, small dust clouds rising from passing cars. Life went on, people shopping, kids playing ball, the red chili shop in the market, still playing old music. No one mentioned Maya much anymore, except her mother, Elena Delgado, who still visited the station every weekend, bringing a folder of her daughter's photos, and asking the same question. "Any news?" Ortiz could only shake his head. Before leaving that evening, he opened his worn leather notebook, where the first lines from the case's start were written. The first page read, June 14, 2009, Missing Person Report, Maya Delgado, 17 years old. On the last page, he added today, simply 4 lines. No evidence, no witnesses, no body. File closed. When he closed the notebook, Ortiz turned off the light and left the office. Outside, the night wind blew through Hatch Valley, carrying dry dust and the faint moisture from the Rio Grande. Under the sky, pale moonlight fell on the low houses, quiet as the disappearance the whole town was slowly forgetting. In the darkness of the police station, only the faint red light of the storage room remained, where file #09247 lay still, marking the end of the first phase in an investigation that had no answers. From 2010 to 2019, Maya Delgado's disappearance gradually faded into oblivion. File #09247 remained in a metal drawer in the basement of the Doña Ana County Administrative Building, stacked with dozens of other unsolved cases. No one opened it for nearly a decade. Outside, life in Hatch Valley continued as if nothing had happened. The students who graduated with Maya that year had moved on, some to college, some starting families in other cities. Occasionally, someone mentioned her as a vague memory, the girl who vanished in the summer of 2009. Chief Raymond Ortiz left the force in 2013, after 32 years of service. He left town quietly, taking his old leather notebook, a reminder that sometimes justice could be buried by time. After his retirement, a younger officer took his place, knowing Maya Delgado's case only through the file. Under new leadership, the department prioritized drug crimes and border violence. Old missing person cases were barely mentioned. Aaron Blake left Hatch in 2014. Neighbors said, He moved to Albuquerque, got a job at an auto garage, and never returned. His departure caused no stir. People only remembered him as the guy suspected in the disappearance and soon stopped mentioning his name. No warrants, no surveillance requests. His phone number and address vanished from local police lists. The Delgado family tried to hold on for a few more years, but eventually couldn't. The small house where Maya grew up was sold to a young couple. In 2016, Elena and her 2 remaining children moved to Las Cruces, escaping the town with too many memories. In rare interviews, she only said briefly that she was still waiting for a call from the police or anyone with news about Maya. But that call never came. That same year, the Hatch Police Department's evidence locker was merged with the county's storage center in Las Cruces. All cold cases were transferred to the new facility in a separate administrative area with climate control. File hash 09247 was placed in a thick cardboard box, along with a nylon bag containing the Polaroid camera and unexposed film, evidence no one remembered. The storage manager at the time, Mitchell Torres, noted briefly in the log, "Cold case, Hatch, female, 2009, status inactive." In the years that followed, Maya Delgado's case was mentioned only a few times on social media or in local articles about unsolved missing persons in New Mexico. Each time, a few old comments appeared, regrets, questions, or guesses, then drifted away in the stream of new news. No one requested the case be reopened. No one asked about the 17-year-old girl who vanished in that fiery summer. Time faded everything, even the waiting. By the end of 2019, only the old file remained in the Las Cruces storage, light dust on the cover, the label 09247, Delgado, M worn at the edges. No one knew that, soon after, that forgotten file would once again see the light. And with it, the answers Hatch Valley had waited 10 years for. In early 2020, as the United States entered an era of transformation with new forensic technology, the New Mexico State Criminal Investigation Bureau announced a statewide program called the Cold Case DNA Reanalysis Project. The project's goal was to review backlog cases with collected biological samples that had never been analyzed using touch DNA technology, a method capable of extracting genetic material from the tiniest contact traces, which a decade earlier was considered insufficient data. The program was federally funded and headquartered in Albuquerque, gathering a team of forensic experts, technicians, and dedicated investigators. Among the units invited to collaborate was the Las Cruces Investigation Office, which was storing hundreds of cold case files, including the 2009 disappearance of Maya Delgado. In March 2020, Detective Clara Mendez, a 38-year-old investigator with over 10 years of experience in forensics, was assigned to oversee the southern region of the state, responsible for reviewing and selecting eligible files for the program. She and her team of specialists began by inventorying every archived file in the Las Cruces storage, old cardboard boxes labeled by year, filling entire rows of the chilled room. When she reached the 2009 unresolved storage section, Mendez noticed a thick file coded #09247, Delgado, Maya. The cover had yellowed, with a handwritten note, "Cold case, Hatch." Inside, she found investigation reports, scene photos, and especially a carefully sealed evidence bag, noted hair sample. Initial test inconclusive due to contamination. An old 2009 Santa Fe Forensics Lab report confirmed the hair sample was contaminated. Insufficient for comparison with the CODIS database at the time. But under the new program criteria, such overlooked samples were top priority, as touch DNA technology could recover data from dead skin cells remaining on the hair shaft surface. Mendez skimmed the entire file in silence. The Maya Delgado case had all the hallmarks of a classic cold case: no body, no witnesses, and only one suspect without enough evidence to charge. In Chief Ortiz's final report, she saw the note hair recovered from suspect's vehicle, results undetermined. As soon as she read that, Mendez marked the file with a red label, signed it, and wrote, "Eligible for reanalysis, pending lab approval." On March 12, she brought the file to the New Mexico State Forensics Center in Albuquerque. The lab had been upgraded to federal standards, equipped with next-generation touch DNA technology, capable of amplification from just a few epidermal cells. Chief Forensic Scientist Dr. Howard Lane confirmed the Delgado file. Hair sample was still viable for extraction, as it had been properly sealed and stored at stable temperature. He reassured Mendez, "If there's anything left, this technology will find it." After completing the transfer paperwork, Mendez returned to Las Cruces to continue reviewing other files, but she couldn't hide her special focus on the Maya Delgado case. Something about that file kept her up at night: the 10-year silence, Ortiz's detailed but empty reports, and the faded image of the smiling young girl on her graduation day, printed on the file cover. In a personal note, Mendez wrote, "No body, no conclusion, but a feeling this isn't just a simple disappearance." 3 weeks later, the forensics lab sent a preliminary report. The old hair sample remained analyzable. Under the microscope, technicians detected epidermal cell traces at the hair root, enough to proceed with DNA sequencing. Mendez read the results log and felt her heart beat faster. In her career, she had seen countless seemingly dead-end cases reopened by a single small sample. This time, she might be holding a similar chance. On April 8, she filed a report to the State Investigation Office, Reactivation Request, Case 09247. Rationale: viable DNA sample, identified for touch DNA analysis. Status: awaiting comparison. The file was officially shifted to reopened for forensic testing. In the electronic system, the line inactive that had stood for 10 years was replaced with pending DNA results. That evening, alone in the Las Cruces office, Mendez reopened the old 2009 scene photo of the silver pickup truck, where the hair was found. Under the fluorescent light, she stared at the image for a long time, wondering if 2020 technology could speak for what the previous generation had missed. On the computer screen, the electronic file displayed Ortiz's final line from years ago: "No body, no evidence." Mendez tapped the keyboard, adding a short sentence right below, the opening for the case's new phase: "Old evidence, new technology." On April 14, 2020, Detective Clara Mendez received approval from the State Attorney General's office authorizing opening and re-examining all evidence related to file #09247, Maya Delgado. The order allowed her direct access to the Las Cruces Central Storage and transfer of samples to the Albuquerque Forensics Lab for analysis using new methods. Reading the line, "Authorized for evidence re-examination," Mendez knew she had just officially reopened a case buried for over a decade. The next morning, she arrived at the county evidence locker. The storage room was deep in the basement. Cold air mixed with a faint metallic and moldy smell. The on-duty technician, Mitchell Torres, recognized her and nodded silently. "You're here for the Delgado case, right?" he asked, as if he still remembered that file after all these years. Mendez confirmed, presented the permit, and signed the handover log. They walked along the long rows of metal cabinets, stopping at the drawer labeled 2009 Hatch Valley. When Torres unlocked it, the click echoed in the silent space. Inside, the brown cardboard box appeared, its lid still bearing the faded Hatch Police Department seal. The handwritten case #09247, Delgado, M., was blurred by time but legible. Mendez put on nitrile gloves, carefully cut the tape, and opened the lid. Inside, the evidence bags were neatly arranged: a nylon bag with the hair from the pickup truck, a torn purple fabric scrap, a white athletic shoe, and a bag containing the Polaroid camera and unexposed film pack. All were labeled, double-sealed, and accompanied by 2009 seizure reports signed by Chief Ortiz. Mendez checked each bag, noting condition: no tears, no openings, no signs of temperature change. She photographed each item, cross-referencing with Ortiz's original logs. Mendez decided to prioritize all 4 samples for analysis. The hair, primary biological sample, the fabric and shoe, secondary items, possibly holding blood or skin cells, and the Polaroid film evidence never examined. Though the camera's legal value was unclear, she believed recovery could yield unexpected information. Before packing, she read each label aloud, recording the entire process on video to ensure chain of custody validity. When finished, Mendez signed the new sealing report, numbering it reanalysis. Set 2024A, that afternoon, she drove nearly 4 hours from Las Cruces to Albuquerque. The evidence box secured in a specialized trunk. Interstate 25 stretched through the desert, sunlight glaring off the pavement. Mendez turned on the AC, glancing at the evidence box in the rearview mirror, as if it held not just old items, but a frozen piece of an entire town's memory. She arrived at the New Mexico State Forensic Center gate in late afternoon, handing the box to Dr. Howard Lane, the touch DNA lead. Lane signed for it and said quietly, "If we're lucky, we'll have initial results in a few weeks." 3 days later, Lane contacted Mendez to request reference DNA samples. Per protocol, a direct family member's sample was needed for match confirmation. Mendez reached out to Elena Delgado, now living in Las Cruces. The call was met with long silence. When Maya's name was mentioned, Elena took a moment to respond. "You're talking about Maya's case," her voice trembling. Mendez explained the cold case DNA reanalysis program and stressed the need for a genetic sample from a relative. After a pause, Elena agreed and said she still kept Maya's toothbrush and hairbrush in a memory box, items she could never bring herself to throw away. The next day, Mendez visited Elena's home in southern Las Cruces suburbs. The small apartment had a few family photos and Maya's graduation certificate on the wall. Elena pulled a clear plastic box from a wooden cabinet containing a blue toothbrush and a white plastic hairbrush. "Do you think these can still be used?" she asked, eyes distant. Mendez reassured her that DNA on the toothbrush and hair strands on the brush could remain intact if kept dry. She logged, resealed per standards, and signed the transfer. Before leaving, Elena whispered, "If possible, please let me know if you find anything." Back in Albuquerque, Mendez handed the reference samples to the lab. Lane and the technicians began extracting DNA from the toothbrush and Maya's hair, then stored the results in a secure database. Next, they opened each old evidence bag under sterile conditions: hair, fabric, shoe, and film. Each item was meticulously photographed, weighed, and micro-sampled for analysis. Lane paid special attention to the shoe's insole, possible skin cell residue, and the purple fabric's edge, with a dark brown stain of unknown origin. He said they would test simultaneously in 3 directions: identify foreign DNA, match with Maya's sample, and search for male genetics if present. As for the Polaroid camera, Lane temporarily assigned it to the digital image recovery team. A technician carefully opened the film compartment, removing the unexposed pack, discovering 3 unused photos and 1 that had been exposed but not ejected. They were stored separately in a dark room, awaiting chemical recovery processing. Mendez observed through the glass, feeling a mix of excitement and solemnity, as if she were watching a thick layer of time's dust being brushed away. Upon leaving the lab, Mendez signed an additional summary report: hair, fabric, shoe, Polaroid film. Re-examined under 2020 Cold Case DNA Reanalysis Program. Reference samples: victim's toothbrush and hair. Objectives: DNA recovery, physical trace analysis, potential match identification. She set down the pen and exhaled lightly. After over a decade, the Maya Delgado file, the case Hatch Valley had considered closed, was officially reopened, starting not with a new suspect, but with the same old evidence that had lain silent in the dark for 10 years. 3 weeks after all, Maya Delgado case samples were transferred to Albuquerque. Detective Clara Mendez received an internal notification from the State Forensic Center. Preliminary touch DNA results ready, Case 09-247. She arrived at the lab early the next morning, carrying her old notebook, heart beating faster than usual. Dr. Howard Lane, the lead, greeted her in the hallway, holding a thin file clipped with a red label. He said nothing at first, just gestured for her to enter the small conference room. When the door closed, he placed the file on the table and spoke slowly. "Clara, this time we have clear results." The report was divided into 3 parts. DNA results from the hair, from the athletic shoe, and from the purple fabric. The first part, the hair, was the focus. Lane pointed to the data table dense with genetic markers. The female DNA sequence matches perfectly with the reference sample from Maya Delgado's toothbrush. No doubt, the hair recovered from the 2009 pickup truck floor is hers. Mendez stared at the bolded line. Match confirmed, probability 99.99%, feeling her chest tighten. A simple confirmation, but the first evidence in 11 years proving Maya had indeed been in that truck. The second part silenced the room for a few seconds. In the report, Lane wrote clearly, "Touch DNA analysis from the athletic shoe insole shows a mixture of 2 genetic profiles, 1 female, 1 male. The female sequence matches Maya Delgado. The male sequence matches Aaron Blake's DNA sample." Mendez looked up, asking to confirm, "You're saying a full match?" Lane nodded, adding same probability as the first sample, virtually absolute, cannot be coincidence. The final line of this section made her read it twice. Presence of male DNA indicates direct contact or shared usage of item within a short time frame prior to disappearance. The third part, results from the purple fabric, showed diluted female blood matching Maya, but no foreign DNA. The report concluded overall, evidence suggests physical interaction between victim and subject Blake within the same environment. Biological transfer confirmed. Mendez sat still for a long time, hearing only the hum of the air conditioning and the rustle of paper as Lane refolded the file. He added, "Touch DNA technology identified both individuals. Notably, the male sample still shows fresh skin enzyme traces, suggesting adhesion very close to the incident, not later cross-contamination." Before leaving the room, Mendez signed for the results and asked Lane about the Polaroid camera, the only part without a report. He said the image recovery team was still processing, as the old film had degraded, requiring layer-by-layer chemical separation to salvage image data. "We'll update you," he said. But this DNA alone is enough to reactivate the entire case. That afternoon, Mendez drafted a 12-page summary report, outlining the analysis process, sample sources, and verification results. In the conclusion, she wrote, 2020 Touch DNA analysis has confirmed the presence of victim Maya Delgado and suspect Aaron Blake in the same evidence environment, the 2009 destroyed pickup truck. Both DNAs were found on the victim's athletic shoe. Sample nature indicates high likelihood of direct contact. Recommend forwarding results to Doña Ana County Prosecutor's Office for criminal evaluation. The report was sent that evening, marking the first time in over a decade that file #09247 appeared in the internal access system of the prosecutor's office. On May 6, 2020, County Chief Prosecutor Rebecca Stone signed the receipt document and requested the reopening of a criminal investigation. In the case management system, the file status changed from cold case to active homicide investigation. The next morning, Mendez was summoned to an internal meeting in Las Cruces with representatives from the prosecutor's office, forensics team, and violent crimes unit. Projected on the screen were Maya Delgado's old file photo and Aaron Blake's 2009 driver's license portrait. Rebecca Stone opened firmly, "We have the victim's DNA in the truck and the suspect's DNA on the victim's shoe. This is no longer a missing person case, this is an uncharged criminal case." Mendez presented the full re-examination process, from hair sample recovery, genetic sequencing, to CODIS database comparison. She emphasized the results were completely independent, with no chance of storage-related cross-contamination. A forensics technician added, "The new Touch DNA system needs only 5 skin cells for a full profile. Aaron's trace couldn't come from indirect contact. After the meeting, Prosecutor Stone ordered full evidence file restoration, review of 2009 statements, and preparation of old witness subpoenas. She concluded, "If these results are confirmed again, we have grounds to open a state-level murder investigation." Mendez left the room silently, feeling both relief and weight. From now on, every action would be scrutinized under homicide legal framework, no longer missing persons. Back at the Las Cruces office, Mendez opened the investigation system on her computer. The status column next to file #09247 had changed color from gray to red, displaying active homicide investigation. She paused, then saved a copy of the DNA results to secure storage. Outside, late afternoon light gilded the desert, reflecting off the office window. Mendez leaned back in her chair, knowing the Maya Delgado case had entered a completely new chapter, one where the truth, after 11 years, was finally beginning to speak. At the New Mexico State Forensics Center, the image recovery team began processing the Polaroid film pack seized in the Maya Delgado evidence box. The pack had lain dormant for 11 years. Its internal chemicals crystallized, emulsion layers fused. Dr. Howard Lane assigned the task to specialized image technician Jonas Patel, who had experience recovering burned, moldy, and severely damaged photos. "Don't expect much," Lane said before leaving the room. "But if even one photo is readable, it could change the entire file." Patel started by separating each film sheet in a sterile darkroom. The pack contained 4 Polaroid frames, 3 unused and 1 exposed, but not ejected from the camera. The edge was stuck with hardened chemicals, the image surface gray-black. He used a microscalpel to peel layers, then soaked them in a special solution to soften the emulsion. The process took hours, with each film segment photographed using infrared optical camera to capture hidden structures beneath. By the end of the second day, as laser light scanned the surface, the first faint shapes emerged, part of a car seat frame, a bright patch, possibly a face, and something like a reflection on window glass. The recovery room immediately transferred data to digital analysis system. A specialized algorithm reconstructed original colors based on remaining silver chloride distribution. The image gradually sharpened, still blurry, but enough to recognize a girl sitting in the passenger seat, head slightly tilted toward the window. Long hair fell over her shoulders, car lights illuminating a pale face. Mendez was notified that evening. When she arrived, Patel simply said, "I think you should see this." On the large screen in the dark room, the processed Polaroid photo was maximized. Though imperfect, key details were clear. Maya Delgado in the front seat of a light-colored vehicle, apparently at night, with only streetlight glowing through the glass. On her collar, under the reflection, was an irregular dark streak, like blood. Beside her, on the window, appeared the reflection of a man holding something long, possibly a cord or loose seatbelt. Mendez stared, heart pounding. Patel zoomed into the reflection area. External light slanted in, creating a sharp outline of the man's face. Short hair, high cheekbones, square jaw, closely matching Aaron Blake's 2009 file photo. Mendez said nothing, just nodded slightly. Patel explained, "The light here comes from outside the vehicle, likely a sodium street lamp. Based on angle and bulb type, I cross-referenced Hatch infrastructure data from 2009. Low-pressure sodium lamps were only installed on Highway 26, near the Hatch Valley gas station. In other words, the photo was taken the night Maya disappeared, in the area she was last seen." For confirmation, Lane requested spectral light analysis via contrast measurement software. Results showed the characteristic yellow of sodium light and a blurred red sign reflection when processed, revealing partial text. Fuel. On Highway 26 that year, only one station existed, Valley Fuel and Market. Mendez reopened the original file. A 2009 witness statement reported seeing a silver pickup stopped at that station around 11 p.m. 2 people inside seemingly arguing. When cross-referenced, every detail matched perfectly. By the fifth day, the Polaroid photo was printed in large original size and sealed as evidence. The technical report, over 20 pages long, confirmed time of capture approximately 10:45 p.m. 11:15 p.m. on June 13, 2009, based on lighting and weather conditions. Location, Hatch Valley area, near Highway 26. Subject in photo, female, features, matching Maya Delgado. Reflection in window, male, facial characteristics consistent with Aaron Blake. Anomalous object on victim's collar has color and reflective properties consistent with dried blood. The report concluded, the Polaroid image depicts victim Maya Delgado injured while still alive, seated in the suspect's vehicle. This is the first direct visual evidence confirming the simultaneous presence of victim and suspect on the night of disappearance. Upon receiving the file, Mendez took several minutes to read it all. She felt heavy, not from excitement, but because the photo had finally turned what was once mere hypothesis into undeniable reality. Alongside the DNA evidence, they now had visual proof. She immediately called Prosecutor Rebecca Stone. In the brief call, Stone asked only one question, "Are you sure it's Maya in the photo?" Mendez replied, "It couldn't be anyone else." The next day, in a special meeting at the Doña Ana County Prosecutor's Office, the Polaroid photo was projected on the large screen before the entire investigation team. The room fell dead silent. The golden light on Maya's face in the image left everyone stunned. One veteran specialist whispered, 11 years, and finally, the girl speaks. Stone concluded, with this DNA and image, we have clear grounds to consider criminal charges. This is no longer a disappearance. This is an assault leading to death. Before leaving the meeting room, Mendez looked at the photo one last time. She saw in Maya's eyes something between fear and resignation, like a moment trapped between life and darkness. The reflection of the man beside her, cold, distant, was the missing piece Hatch Valley had never been able to reach. That evening, Mendez wrote a single line in her investigation notebook under the 2020 date, "Visual evidence, recovered Polaroid. Maya alive in vehicle, blood trace, shadow of figure." She set down the pen and closed her eyes briefly. Outside, the Albuquerque sky glowed faint orange with sunset. In the evidence room, the Polaroid photo, sealed in a new envelope, lay still under cold lights, carrying a piece of truth everyone had sought for 11 years. After the Polaroid results were confirmed, Detective Clara Mendez refused to let herself stop. One unanswered question still echoed in her mind. If Maya was injured in the truck, her blood had to be somewhere, on the seat, the floor, or anywhere in the pickup Aaron Blake once owned. She knew that even though the truck was destroyed, something might remain. In Chief Ortiz's 2009 notes, he had gone to the El Paso metal recycling scrapyard, but arrived after the vehicle was dismantled. Ortiz only managed to collect some plastic and seat leather scraps, insufficient for analysis. Mendez decided to follow that trail. On May 22, 2020, she traveled to El Paso, Texas, carrying a copy of the supplemental evidence collection order from the Doña Ana County Prosecutor's Office. The scrapyard was in the city's southern industrial zone, a dry expanse reeking of rust. The main gate bore a faded sign. A security guard led her to the manager, Ruben Chavez, who had worked there over 15 years. When Mendez showed him file photos and the truck's VIN, Chavez frowned, recalling, "I remember that one. A young guy sold it for a few $100, said it was badly broken. I signed for it, then sent it to dismantling. But wait, Jose might still have some parts." The Jose Chavez mentioned was Jose Martinez, a recycling parts technician. In his 50s, thin, sun-darkened skin. When Mendez asked about the silver pickup, he nodded slowly. "Yeah, I remember. It was cut up, but the front seat was still good. I kept one, planning to use the leather as a pattern for new trainees." He led her behind the warehouse, where old materials were stacked like walls. In a corner was a gray-silver seat leather panel, piled with others, thick dust covering it. Jose said quietly, If I'm not mistaken, this is from that truck. We pulled it out, saw some dark stains, thought it was engine oil, ignored it. Mendez immediately photographed it, cross-referencing with 2009 evidence logs. Shape, color, even the stitching on the edge matched Ortiz's photos. She had Jose sign a handover report, sealed the leather, and contacted the Albuquerque forensics lab. The evidence was transported under cold preservation, labeled recovered seat material. El Paso 2020. 3 days later, in the lab, Dr. Howard Lane personally oversaw testing. The leather was placed on a stainless steel table in a dark room, under blue light. A technician carefully sprayed luminol and waited for fluorescence. Within seconds, the gray leather showed faint glowing streaks along the seating edge and backrest, irregular shapes, clearly hemoglobin-containing traces. Lane looked at Mendez and nodded slightly. This isn't oil, it's blood. Samples from the glowing areas were taken for DNA analysis. The process took nearly a week. While waiting, Mendez stayed in Albuquerque, often sitting in the waiting room, rereading old files, wondering if this was the very seat Maya sat in. On the night of June 13, 2009. One early June morning, Lane entered, holding a thin report, eyes tired but bright. "Clara," he said, "we have results." The DNA extracted from the seat leather contained 2 genetic sequences, one female, one male. The female matched 99.99% with Maya Delgado's toothbrush sample. The male matched absolutely with Aaron Blake's stored profile in the New Mexico DNA database. Lane placed his hand on the paper, emphasizing, "No coincidence. This is biological evidence. Both were present on the same seat at the same time." The report was stamped in red, numbered Forensic Exhibit #47B, seat leather, Polaroid vehicle, recovered El Paso. The final conclusion read, "Blood traces on seat leather, consistent with DNA profile of Maya Delgado. Mixed DNA sample includes Aaron Blake. High probability of direct physical contact at time of blood deposit." Mendez stood silent as she read. For over a decade, the truck was considered lost. Now it returned like a witness. She recalled Ortiz's final 2009 lines, "Vehicle destroyed, evidence no longer viable." Now that very evidence spoke what he had hoped, that truth could be buried but never erased. That same day, Mendez presented the results to Prosecutor Rebecca Stone. An emergency meeting was held at the Doña Ana County Prosecutor's office. On the table, 3 key pieces of evidence were laid side by side: the touch DNA report, the recovered Polaroid photo, and the seat blood analysis. Stone opened, "We now have a complete chain: victim DNA, suspect DNA, and direct imagery capturing them together in the vehicle. All match time and location." Mendez added, "The blood shows she was injured while still there. The seat couldn't have blood without physical contact at the moment." Stone nodded, looking around the table. "This is the strongest evidence in 11 years, she said. "And it directly connects victim and suspect at the scene." In the summary sent to state level, she wrote, "Recovered physical evidence from vehicle scrapyard confirms direct contact between victim and subject Blake during event leading to disappearance. Classification: active homicide. Evidence corroborates probable cause." As the meeting ended, Mendez stepped into the hallway, looking through the glass window. Light rain fell in Albuquerque, rare in the dry season. She thought of Ortiz, who had carried this file for years, and imagined if he were still in service, he might smile. The dusty old seat from a Texas scrapyard had not just brought evidence, it was a piece of memory returning, bridging the gap between 2009 and now. In her investigation notebook, Mendez added a new line, handwriting slanted and firm. "Seat leather. El Paso. Positive luminol reaction. DNA matches Maya Delgado and Aaron Blake. Direct contact. Scene confirmed." She closed the notebook, feeling not just duty fulfilled, but a deep awareness that this case, after over a decade, was finally moving toward justice. After the DNA and seat evidence were confirmed, the investigation team under Detective Clara Mendez entered the phase of fully reconstructing the night of June 13, 2009. The night Maya Delgado vanished, their goal was to determine the silver pickup's final route, reconstruct every stop and time frame, and deduce the likely body disposal site. Using newly gathered data and modern path analysis technology, the case began to be pieced together more clearly than ever. First, the technical team reviewed cell phone signal data. Though 2009 positioning was rudimentary, carriers retained tower logs. At the Doña Ana County prosecutor's request, Southwest Cellular provided historical records for two phones, Maya Delgado and Aaron Blake. Results showed both devices connected to the same downtown Hatch Tower from 9:47 p.m. to 10:58 p.m., near the graduation party venue. Maya's signal then moved south, crossing Highway 26. The last ping was at 11:11 p.m., less than half a mile from Valley Fuel and Market. That matched the Polaroid photo's light analysis timing. Aaron Blake's phone continued pinging for 30 minutes, connecting to 3 towers along the route from Hatch to the Hatch Waterworks construction site, where he had worked summers in 2008. After 11:45 p.m., the signal vanished completely, as if the device was powered off or jammed. The data overlaid on a geographic map showed a 14-mile southeast path ending at the old water treatment plant, an isolated area surrounded by grasslands and dry settling ponds. Mendez recalled Aaron's 2009 statement after arguing Maya got out and walked home. But if true, why did his phone leave Hatch in the opposite direction, to a place with no residential access? This contradiction became central to the new hypothesis. Aaron never drove Maya home, he left town. The team cross-referenced payment records. Reviewing state tax data, they found a card transaction by Aaron Blake at 10:58 p.m. on June 13, 2009 at Valley Fuel and Market, $18 in fuel. That receipt had never been examined in the original investigation. Thus, minutes after witnesses saw them arguing in the parking lot, Aaron stopped for gas and left town. Combined with the Polaroid timestamp, all data pointed to the same window. Next, Mendez requested reanalysis of traffic camera data along Highway 26 and side roads to Hatch Waterworks. Though most old cameras were defunct, the New Mexico DOT archive retained copies from an automated system at the County Road 17 junction, 6 miles from Hatch. Technicians recovered blurry footage timestamped 11:28 p.m., showing a silver pickup heading southeast, no front plate, left taillight blinking, matching Ortiz's file description of Aaron's truck. No vehicle was recorded returning toward Hatch. Mendez compiled all data on a digital map: Maya's last phone ping, Aaron's fuel purchase, the County Road 17 footage, and Aaron's final signal. All formed a continuous line from downtown Hatch to Hatch Waterworks, a 35-minute drive. Hatch Waterworks was a 1970s-era water treatment facility, abandoned since 2005. It had been Aaron's high school summer job site, a detail Ortiz noted but never pursued deeply. The area was rarely visited, containing only a few cement tanks and dry channels. From experience, Mendez knew such abandoned industrial sites were often chosen for disposal due to low traffic and easy concealment. The investigation team's technical report stated, all electronic, financial, and visual data align within the same time frame, from 10:50 p.m. to 11:45 p.m., direction of travel toward Hatch Waterworks. This is the highest probability location for criminal activity related to Maya Delgado's disappearance. On June 4, 2020, at a Doña Ana County Prosecutor's Office meeting, Mendez presented the full route reconstruction. On the large screen was a color satellite map showing the path with timestamps: 10:45 p.m. Maya and Aaron leave graduation party. 10:58 p.m. Fuel transaction at Valley Fuel and Market. 11:11 p.m. Maya's phone loses signal. 11:28 p.m. County Road 17 camera records, silver pickup heading to Hatch Waterworks. 11:45 p.m. Aaron's phone goes dark. Rebecca Stone reviewed the report carefully then looked up. If that's where the signal stopped, we must consider it the actual crime scene. She signed the directive authorizing excavation and search of Hatch Waterworks, also requesting coordination with the Environment Department for site safety. As the meeting ended, Mendez stood looking at the map spread across the table. The thin red line from Hatch to the site looked like a long cut through the desert. She quietly told a colleague, "We're about to go where they should have gone 11 years ago." That evening, alone in her office, Mendez reopened the Polaroid. Maya in the truck, golden light through the window. Now she knew exactly where that truck had gone. In her notebook, she wrote briefly, "Route confirmed, destination. Hatch Waterworks. Aaron Blake's former worksite. Likely endpoint." She closed the notebook and breathed slowly. The investigation had gone further than any prior team, and under the late office lights, the Hatch Valley map glowed with red dots, traces of a journey that for 11 years only desert wind and time had kept. On June 10, 2020, at dawn, a convoy from the New Mexico State Criminal Investigation Bureau entered Hatch Waterworks, the old water treatment plant 14 miles from downtown. By 7 a.m., temperatures exceeded 90 degrees Fahrenheit, desert wind whipping up blinding sand. The forensics team set up temporary barriers, hanging crime scene, do not enter signs around the central area, once home to cement settling tanks and dry reservoirs. There, Detective Clara Mendez commanded directly alongside Dr. Howard Lane from the Albuquerque lab, and a geological survey team with ground-penetrating radar technology scanning subsurface structures for anomalies without digging. Starting at 8 a.m., technicians scanned in 10-meter grid squares. Mendez stood by the monitor, displaying blue and pale red reflection waves. For the first 2 hours, nothing notable beyond rocks and old metal pipes. Near noon, as radar swept the southeast plot, once the site of the second settling tank, a dense reflection appeared clearly at 1.2 meters depth, irregular shape, unlike construction material. The technician pointed, "Something's down there about 1.5 meters long. Surrounding soil density is completely different." Mendez ordered the area cordoned, marking a 5-meter radius. After Prosecutor Rebecca Stone approved excavation, the forensics team began in the afternoon. Soil layers were removed slowly, documented, and photographed continuously. Upper soil was dry and hard, but at 1 meter it darkened, moisture, showing artificial compression. A technician scraped a few more times with a small trowel, then froze. "I see something white." They paused, switching on handheld lights. Amid the compressed soil was a curved, smooth, small bone, possibly a human rib. The air grew still. Mendez knelt, gloved, examining closely. She signaled to expand the excavation. Within minutes, more bone fragments emerged. A pelvic joint, then a partially shattered skull at the temple. The entire area shifted to exhumation protocol. Every centimeter of soil was vacuumed with mini equipment to avoid damage. Near the neck bones, a technician found a dark purple fabric scrap, frayed and sandy, along with a small glinting metal object in the sunlight. When cleaned, it revealed a thin silver necklace with a heart pendant engraved Ned D, matching Elena Delgado's 2009 report description. Maya wore a silver chain with initials engraved. Mendez clenched her gloved fist, staring at the necklace in disbelief. She noted briefly, "Necklace matches identification." Below it, purple fabric trace, likely victim's shirt. By late afternoon, the entire skeletal remains were carefully collected, each bone fragment numbered. A separate evidence bag containing the fabric scrap and necklace was sealed. The scene was captured in panoramic drone footage from above. The dry land, yellow barriers, and dozens of tiny figures, like the final stitch in a buried secret. Mendez stood still for a long time after the technicians loaded the last bone bag onto the specialized vehicle. 11 years, she whispered to Lane, and finally, she's here. The remains were transferred that evening, to the Albuquerque Forensic Examination Office for analysis. Lane and the osteology forensics team began the process, determining sex, age, height, and extracting DNA from the femur, the part often best preserving genetic material. While waiting, Mendez contacted Elena Delgado, informing her they had found skeletal remains possibly related. The line was silent for a long time before she whispered, I always knew it was somewhere nearby." 3 days later, the DNA identification report was complete. Comparison between the bone sample and Maya's genetic data from the 2020 toothbrush showed a perfect match. The final presentation stated clearly, skeletal remains recovered at Hatch Waterworks, confirmed as belonging to Maya Delgado, female, 17 years old at time of disappearance. Additionally, fracture traces on the left temporal bone indicated blunt force trauma, the cause of death. When Mendez read those lines in her office, the air seemed to thicken. For 11 years, Maya Delgado's name had existed only as a missing person file. Now, with the DNA conclusion, she had returned, not as a question, but as a homicide victim. The report was sent immediately to the Doña Ana County Prosecutor's Office. Within less than 24 hours, Prosecutor Rebecca Stone signed the decision, changing the case's legal status from homicide investigation to confirmed homicide, victim identified. The next morning, at the Hatch Waterworks site, Mendez and the forensics team returned for a final sweep of the surrounding area. They found a few small glass shards, possibly from a vehicle light, and broken plastic pieces, but no other significant traces. Before packing up, Mendez looked at the land one more time. The sun was high, harsh white light, covering the dark soil where, 11 years earlier, someone had quietly buried a girl and driven away into the night. She picked up a handful of sand, letting it slip through her fingers. The air burned, the wind still dry and rasping as in the early days of the 2009 investigation, but inside Mendez felt something different. A quiet mix of sorrow and closure. She knew that from this moment, the Maya Delgado case was no longer a mystery, but a real crime. And that truth, though late, had finally been unearthed from the heart of Hatch Valley. That same evening, local media began reporting, female body discovered at Old Hatch Waterworks site, believed to be 2009 missing person victim. In the Albuquerque evidence locker, the silver necklace engraved MD was placed beside the purple fabric sample, the only two items still retaining their shape, after all those years. Proof that even if time erases everything, truth finds a way back. On the morning of June 14, 2020, exactly 11 years after Maya Delgado's disappearance, the Albuquerque Forensic Examination Office officially conducted a full autopsy on the skeletal remains recovered from Hatch Waterworks. Under the white lights of the operating room, forensics specialists in full protective gear meticulously documented every detail. Detective Clara Mendez was present in the observation room behind the isolation glass, alongside Prosecutor Rebecca Stone and Dr. Howard Lane. After many years, the case was no longer based on guesses or old files. They now had a silent witness, Maya's own body. The autopsy process began with cleaning and reassembling the entire skeleton, cross-referencing with the victim's anthropometric chart. Experts determined the remains were nearly intact, missing a few finger phalanges and part of a rib fractured during decomposition. Soil staining around the bones indicated a stable burial environment, undisturbed after interment. Insect and termite traces showed the body was buried at the time of death, with no signs of relocation. The focus was the skull, with a large fracture in the left temporal region extending to the cheekbone. Electron microscope analysis of the fracture edges showed sharp rims and inward compression, characteristic of severe blunt force trauma inflicted while the victim was alive. Dr. Lane presented, based on injury shape, highly likely a blow from a thin-edged blunt object, possibly a metal bar, stick, or tool handle. He pointed to the 3D simulation screen, where the pink-red fracture stood out against white bone. The right arm bone had a small oblique fracture toward the elbow, indicating the victim raised her arm reflexively to shield her head during the attack. Ribs showed slight indentations consistent with impact against a hard surface, like falling sideways in a confined space. No knife wounds or cuts were found, nor evidence of wrist or ankle restraints, supporting the theory that the incident was sudden and in a limited area, possibly inside the vehicle. Moving to remaining soft tissue analysis, the team recovered purple fabric fibers adhered to the shoulder bone, matching the shirt fragment found at the scene. The fabric had blood seepage from the neck down to the chest, aligning with the head wound's flow direction. From this, the team determined cause of death as severe cranial trauma, leading to internal bleeding and rapid blood loss. An independent toxicology report showed no traces of poison or sedatives in remaining tissue, ruling out pre-death drugging. Mineral composition in the surrounding soil matched Hatch Waterworks samples, proving the body was buried on site, not moved from elsewhere. Mendez flipped through the report, noting the clear conclusion: no evidence of post-death body relocation. Excavation site is the death location. For time of death, the forensics team used decomposition degree, sediment residue, and insect cycles for estimation. Data, compared to Hatch Valley climate conditions, yielded victim died around the night of June 13 into early June 14, 2009, with a margin of error no more than 12 hours. This figure aligned almost perfectly with Maya's last phone signal and Aaron Blake's truck's final appearance on County Road 17 camera. Dr. Lane completed the preliminary report that day. He stepped into the observation room, speaking through the intercom. "Clara, we can confirm this was intentional homicide. The head blow was the direct cause of death, with no evidence of accident or natural fall. The strike was forceful enough to fracture the temporal bone and cause acute brain trauma." Mendez looked down at the table, quickly jotting. "Blow from left side, blunt object. Victim seated or bent when attacked. No post-death movement." She knew this eliminated old theories that Maya might have run away or fallen while fleeing. This was no longer a disappearance, but deliberate violence. 2 days later, the official autopsy report was finalized and sent to the Doña Ana County Prosecutor's Office. The nearly 50-page document compiled input from forensics, geology, biology, and evidence departments. The final page bore a bold conclusion: cause of death, cranial trauma due to external force. Manner of death, homicide. Time of death, approximately June 13, 2009. Between 10:30 p.m., 11:30 p.m. Location of death, Hatch Waterworks, Hatch Valley, New Mexico. Prosecutor Rebecca Stone received the report in the afternoon. She read each line slowly, then looked up at Mendez. "We have everything: time, cause, location. Nothing left to call this doubt." Mendez only nodded, silent. She knew this moment closed an 11-year journey, but opened the harder part, bringing the responsible party to justice. Leaving the forensics room, Mendez glanced back through the glass. Maya's white skeleton on the table, covered with cloth, awaiting family handover. Late daylight hit the glass, reflecting her silhouette and the bold black letters on the report. Homicide. Confirmed. In that instant, Clara Mendez understood that truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds its way back. On June 18, 2020, 4 days after the official forensics report confirmed Maya Delgado's cause of death, Prosecutor Rebecca Stone signed an arrest warrant for Aaron Blake on charges of second-degree murder and concealment destruction of a human body. The warrant was issued after all evidence, including DNA results, the Polaroid photo, and autopsy report, was reviewed by a federal prosecutor's panel, unanimously agreeing it sufficiently establishes direct connection between suspect and victim at the time and place of the crime. The 8-page warrant ended over a decade of unresolved suspicion. The next morning, the warrant was transferred to the Las Cruces Police Department, coordinating with Albuquerque SWAT for the arrest operation. Per residency records, Aaron Blake, 32, lived in a small house in West Mesa, West Albuquerque, working as an auto mechanic at a private garage. The task force began surveillance at dawn, surrounding the area. At 7:45 a.m., as Blake stepped onto the front porch holding a coffee cup, an officer used a bullhorn to order him to raise your hands and step away from the door. No resistance. Aaron was handcuffed on site, read his Miranda rights in front of shocked neighbors as police vehicles encircled the quiet street. Mendez arrived at the scene 15 minutes later. She watched the man from the 2009 files, now thinner, short-cropped hair, empty eyes, bow his head. He was loaded into a transport vehicle and taken directly to the Las Cruces interrogation center. Entering the interview room, Mendez sensed the sharp antiseptic smell and harsh white light on the steel table. A cold, sealed space where truth is hard to hide. The interrogation began at 10 a.m., attended by Prosecutor Stone, Investigator Forrester, the defense attorney appointed by the suspect. Mendez led the questioning. She opened by placing 3 files on the table: the large print Polaroid photo, the seat DNA report, and the autopsy confirming cause of death. She spoke calmly, each word clear. Mr. Blake, we have scientific evidence proving Maya Delgado died on the night of June 13, 2009. She suffered cranial trauma in your pickup truck. Blood on the seat matches her DNA. And this, the Polaroid photo, shows her in the truck with your reflection in the window. Do you want to explain? Aaron stared at the table, silent for a long time. His fingers trembled slightly, tapping the steel. Finally, he whispered hoarsely, I didn't mean to kill her, I just didn't want her to leave. Mendez said nothing, only started the recorder. Aaron recounted, slowly, haltingly, that night after the graduation party, they argued fiercely. Maya said she wanted to move to Albuquerque for college. He thought she was running from everything, he admitted, stopping the truck in an empty lot near Hatch Waterworks, his old high school job site. When Maya tried to open the door to leave, he grabbed her arm. They struggled, and in a loss of control, he shoved hard. She hit her head on the doorframe and went limp. I panicked. I shook her, but she wouldn't wake, he said, eyes fixed on the floor. I thought she just passed out. When I saw blood in her hair, I knew it was too late, Mendez asked. And then, Aaron paused, then answered, I was scared. I took a blanket from the truck, wrapped her, and drove to the water tanks. I dug a hole, buried her. I didn't think I'd be found. The statement silenced the room. Prosecutor Stone nodded to the clerk to transcribe. When Mendez displayed the Hatch Waterworks site map, Aaron glanced at it, voice fading. Yes, there, near the east settling tank. Mendez knew he had just confirmed the exact excavation location. In the second questioning phase, she cross-referenced more data, the bloody seat leather, Polaroid, phone signals. For each piece of evidence, Aaron only nodded, no denial. When asked why he kept the camera, he said Maya loved Polaroid photos. They brought it that night to capture our last evening together. He admitted taking the shot as she turned away, just wanted a picture, didn't expect. The sentence choked off. By 3 p.m., the interrogation ended. Aaron signed the statement, confirming it was voluntary and uncoerced. In the transcript, he wrote shakily by hand, I take responsibility for causing Maya Delgado's death. I didn't intend it, but I let it go too far. I buried her at Hatch Waterworks. I'm sorry. Mendez collected the statement, signed it, and stepped into the hallway. Outside, Las Cruces' afternoon sun burned. She stood still a long time, watching through the glass as Aaron was led away, hands cuffed, shoulders slumped. In that moment, she thought of Ortiz, who began this case with a simple missing person report 11 years earlier, and thought perhaps he would rest easier knowing the truth. Finally had a voice. That evening, in her report to Prosecutor Stone, Mendez wrote, Suspect Aaron Blake, arrested per Doña Ana County Court warrant. During interrogation, subject admitted causing victim Maya Delgado's death and burying the body at Hatch Waterworks, matching excavation site. Statement fully consistent with physical evidence and forensics results. Case status, completed investigation. Homicide confirmed. The final line, she added, concise but carrying the weight of 11 years' pursuit. Truth is never lost. It only waits for someone patient enough to look again. In February 2021, nearly a year after Maya Delgado's body was exhumed, the Doña Ana District Court in Las Cruces officially opened the trial of Aaron Blake, 32, charged with 2 counts, second-degree murder and concealment destruction of a human body. The case drew close public and local media attention as one of New Mexico's longest-running cold cases solved through modern DNA technology. On opening day, the courtroom was packed. The front row held Maya's mother, Elena Delgado, sitting silently, hands tightly clutching the silver necklace. Found beside her daughter's remains, the trial was presided over by Judge Robert Hensley. Prosecutor Rebecca Stone represented the state, while attorney Daniel Reeves defended Aaron Blake. Opening, the judge read the indictment in a low, clear voice. Defendant Aaron Blake is charged with second-degree murder under Section February 1st, 30 of the New Mexico Criminal Code, along with concealment of victim Maya Delgado's body, committed on the night of June 13, 2009. Aaron bowed his head, saying only, "Not guilty." Prosecutor Stone began her presentation by reconstructing the investigation timeline from the night Maya vanished, the fruitless 11-year search, to the 2020 DNA reanalysis. She placed on the evidence table items small yet devastating: the Polaroid photo, seat leather sample, autopsy report, and recorded confession. Under the courtroom's cold lights, each was revealed, the photo clearly showing Maya in the truck, dark blood near her hair, and Aaron's half-face reflected in the window. The gallery fell silent. Stone spoke calmly but firmly. "We do not rely on speculation, but on science. The victim's and defendant's DNA appear together in the same confined space. Mr. Blake's pickup truck. The Polaroid shows her injured while alive. Forensics confirm a blunt object blow caused death. The defendant admitted transporting and burying the body to conceal his crime. This was no accident. It was conscious action followed by a chain of decisions to erase evidence." To strengthen the argument, the prosecution called Dr. Howard Lane, Albuquerque forensics expert, as an expert witness. He presented the autopsy findings based on the structure of the left temporal bone fracture, force direction, and injury depth. "We determined it was a direct blow with a solid object, powerful and instantaneous. No natural fall could produce similar trauma." When the skull fracture simulation was projected on the screen, some in the room turned away, while Elena Delgado bowed her head, tears rolling down her cheeks. After the prosecution, defense attorney Reeves opened gently, trying to shift emotion. "Your Honor, my client did not flee, did not resist, and in the first interrogation, he cooperated and recounted everything. He has no prior record, no weapon, no premeditation to kill. This was a tragic accident between 2 young people in a spontaneous argument." He argued that pushing Maya could have been an unconscious reflex without intent to take life, and burying the body was the panic of someone unable to face consequences. Prosecutor Stone immediately countered, "An accident does not lead to hiding a body for 11 years, staying silent, and selling the crime vehicle to erase traces. An accident does not make someone keep the camera capturing the victim injured. That was not reflex. It was choice." Her words left the gallery breathless. The jury heard Aaron Blake's interrogation recording again. The male voice low, mixed with shaky breaths. "I didn't mean to kill her. I just wanted her to stay." The recording played as the Polaroid photo was shown, making the courtroom atmosphere suffocatingly heavy. At the end of arguments, Judge Hensley instructed the jury to retire for deliberations. After nearly 8 hours of closed discussion, the jury returned at 8 p.m. The foreperson was asked, "Have you reached a verdict?" The representative stood, holding the paper. "Your Honor, we unanimously find defendant Aaron Blake guilty of second-degree murder and concealment of a body." The room fell silent. Elena Delgado clutched the necklace, head slightly bowed, shoulders trembling. Aaron sat motionless, eyes vacant, as if the words fell into a distant void. 1 week later, the sentencing hearing reconvened. The courtroom was packed with reporters, residents, and former Chief Raymond Ortiz, who opened missing person #09247 in 2009, also present. When asked for final words, Aaron spoke softly, voice weary. "I'm sorry. I can't turn back time. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want her to rest." Elena did not look at him, only shook her head slightly. Judge Hensley read the sentence, each word echoing through the microphone, having considered all evidence, testimony, and jury verdict. The court sentences defendant Aaron Blake to 25 years imprisonment for second-degree murder, plus 5 years for concealment destruction of a body. Total 30 years at the New Mexico State Penitentiary, with parole eligibility only after 25 years. The gavel struck 3 times, closing the case. In that moment, all sound in the room seemed to stop. Reporters scribbled, some residents exhaled, while Elena covered her face, sobbing quietly. Raymond Ortiz approached her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We did it finally." She nodded, voice choked. "Yes, but if only sooner." After the trial, major New Mexico outlets ran headlines. "Justice for Maya Delgado, cold case solved, after 11 years. DNA and forensics technology solve a haunting decade-old disappearance." In a brief press conference, Prosecutor Stone stated, "This is not just a victory for investigators, but an affirmation that time cannot conceal crime. No matter how long, science and justice find the truth." That night, Las Cruces was quieter than usual. On her desk, Mendez opened the thick file, final pages, noting closed, convicted. She placed beside it the archived Polaroid photo, once a symbol of darkness and guilt, now just historical evidence. Outside the window, desert wind blew, carrying New Mexico's dry warmth. After 11 years, the Maya Delgado disappearance was finally closed, with a sentence, with truth, and with faith that justice, though late, still holds value. When Aaron Blake's sentence was announced, media waves erupted across New Mexico. Major papers like the Albuquerque Journal, Santa Fe New Mexican, and local TV stations led with Maya Delgado disappearance, solved, after 11 years, with DNA technology. The reports not only recounted the crime, but emphasized forensics advancements in closing a painful chapter once buried. TV features replayed old footage, Maya at 17 in her graduation ceremony, innocent smile under 2009 summer sun, intercut with Hatch Waterworks excavation scenes. For Hatch residents, it was a memory they thought forever lost to the desert. 1 week after the trial ended, Hatch held a memorial at the town square. Residents brought wildflowers, candles, and Maya's photos, placing them around the old church stone base. Over 200 attended, classmates, neighbors, even strangers, standing silent as her mother, Elena Delgado, spoke. Her voice trembled but steady. "We cannot change the past, but we can turn pain into something good. I want my daughter remembered not for what she lost, but for the belief that truth always finds its way." At the event, Hatch Valley High School teachers and alumni announced the Maya Delgado Memorial Scholarship Fund, supporting female students in forensic science, criminology, and criminal investigation. It launched with community donations and contributions from the Cold Case DNA Reanalysis Program. The fund sign read simply, "In memory of Maya, for those who seek truth." The event resonated beyond Hatch. Universities, research organizations, and law enforcement in neighboring states sent congratulations, viewing it as a model for reviving cold cases with new technology. The state attorney general declared on TV, "The Maya Delgado case shows the irreplaceable value of preserving evidence and investing in modern forensics. If that hair had been lost, justice would have been forever silent." Due to the case's impact, the New Mexico State Police ordered a full evidence storage overhaul. Old warehouses were inventoried and reclassified to new standards. All lingering biological samples were coded, digitized and stored in temperature-controlled conditions. A cold case file management unit was established under the State Investigation Office to periodically review pre-2015 cases. Clara Mendez, who led the Maya investigation, was invited to the technical advisory team. At the unit's first press conference, she said briefly, "We learned one thing: any evidence, no matter how small, if properly preserved, can become the key to justice." The story reached academia and the state legislature. A special committee proposed Maya's law, standardizing DNA storage and retesting in unsolved cases. The bill passed in late 2021 with near-unanimous support. Media called it a positive outcome of tragedy, viewing Maya as a symbol of the state's forensics turning point. In Hatch, summer 2022, a small mesquite tree was planted beside the memorial plaque in the high school yard, where Maya once studied. Beneath it, a sign engraved with the town's chosen words, "For 11 years, the wind carried her name. Now truth brings her home." Each year on June 13th, town lights dim for 1 minute, leaving only candlelight and bell chimes. For them, the Maya Delgado case is not just a closed legal story, but a reminder that technology, perseverance, and human faith can awaken even time-buried files. And in New Mexico, whenever cold case 09247 is mentioned, people no longer think of darkness but of something else: the final light of truth. The Maya Delgado case is not just the journey of solving a cold case in New Mexico, but a mirror reflecting many issues in today's American society, where technology, justice, and community memory intersect. 11 years to find the truth is not just investigation time, but proof of the importance of faith in science and the persistence of those who never give up. When Detective Clara Mendez reopened the old evidence box, she saw not just a hair or a faded photo, but a chance for a family to get answers, for a small community to regain belief that justice, though late, can prevail. In an America increasingly reliant on data and technology, the story reminds us that technical progress only matters when paired with humanity and responsibility. Using touch DNA and restoring an old Polaroid shows how science can turn the seemingly impossible into undeniable proof, but it was the steadfastness of people like Mendez that brought the truth to light. The greatest lesson is not in Aaron Blake's guilt, but in how American society learns from that tragedy: serious investment in forensic systems, evidence storage reform, and a culture that never forgets victims. From the Maya Delgado case, the state enacted Maya's law, laying the foundation for nationwide cold case reviews. It shows that in a vast modern nation like the United States, justice lives not only in courtrooms, it lives in the persistent efforts of those who believe no death should be forgotten and no truth forever buried. If you believe every truth, no matter how long buried, deserves to be found like Maya Delgado's story, please subscribe to the channel to join us in exploring more cases lost to time. Thank you for watching to the end. See you in the next video, where justice is once again illuminated from traces thought long gone.